Thank you very much. Wow. So I'm going to talk about this thing. The robots are coming. And when I was asked by the conference to give a speech about how conversational journalism is changing the media landscape, I said, okay, I will do this. Because who wouldn't want to stay up here and talk to all of you amazing people? But then I started to think about it. And what the hell is conversational journalism? And I asked myself, okay, you have a Twitter handle that is @ConvJournalism because it sounds cool. And I started to think about, okay, what is it exactly? And I was really thinking hard, but I didn't find a definition for it. So I couldn't really grab what it is. I only have a slight idea of what exactly it means. It means, first things first, it is a term that was coined by someone on the internet, as it is always. There's a guy named Chris Messina. He wrote an article, a few articles about what he's calling conversational commerce. Fernanda referred to it. And this is something, as the media chat bubble is really eager on learning new things, which really took waves in the world, and so of course it was not far away to invent conversational journalism. And conversational journalism is especially interesting because if you think about it, it solves some of the major problems media and news publishers have. For example, this one. News publishers have extreme big problems in reaching young audiences. So younger generations don't listen to the evening news, they don't buy newspapers, they even don't follow social media accounts of big news brands from legacy media. And in my opinion, this has something to do with that thing. Maybe few of you recognize it, but it is an article from the Panama Papers story of the Süddeutsche Zeitung and The Guardian and others. And what you see is an article they published on their website. And I mean, have a look at this. It's like thousands of letters, and I don't know who's ever going to read that. So when I first saw that, I thought I asked myself, okay, why are they doing this? Why isn't there a format which is really better fitting for mobile? And as we all know, the killer app for mobile is messaging. And the second thing is, media companies really have a huge problem with this. Actually, this is Instagram, but it's push notifications on Instagram. And I don't know about you, but I really hate push notifications because all the media companies are sending totally useless push notifications to me. It's not that fast, but it's almost that fast on my smartphone. And so it's really annoying. And I turn off a lot of push notifications, but there are things that I would never turn off, and these things are messaging apps. I would never turn off the push notifications of my messaging app because I want to know what my family is talking about and I want to know what my friends want to know from me. So I would never go on and turn this thing off. And the next thing why this conversational commerce thing is important for publishers is, or are guys like him. He's Uwe Ostertag, and actually he's a troll. And a German newspaper ran an article about him. It was 2 or 3 years ago, and they asked him, okay, why are you doing all this hate speech stuff? And why are you publishing racist comments and sexistic comments on social media? And he said, okay, it doesn't matter anyway, because nobody's listening to me. And all I do is, like, I'm just crying myself out in a real crowd of people. So this is an example for people having the feeling that media is not really approaching them on a one-on-one basis, and this leads to all the hate speech and all the trolling out there, in my opinion. So some clever media companies got to know of this conversational journalism thing, and they started to experiment with it. And what I'm going to show you are some examples of really early stage conversational journalism approaches in messaging apps or around messaging apps. The first thing is a pretty straightforward thing. It's from the German newspaper Bild, and what they did is a so-called transfer ticker, and it is basically, you can see it on the left, like simply a short teaser text with some emojis and a link telling the users about what's happening in the transfer window of the German Bundesliga. So whenever there is a guy moving from club A to club B, you get a little push notification and a link, and you can click on it and go to their website and read the full article. They improved it over time visually. So there's a preview picture right now. You can click on a button, an interactive button, and there even is this little a carousel there, but still it is only sending out links to people and nothing else. There's no way to react to this inside the messaging app. There's no way to get in touch with the guys from Bild. Something similar is true for these chatbots. The left one is Forbes on Telegram, and you can enter a keyword like Trump, and it will automatically look up some articles, push the links to you, and you can click on a link if you want to. And you can, of course, subscribe to a certain topic, and whenever there's something new on Donald Trump, you get a push notification. I don't know who wants that, but you can do it. And in the middle, you can see the CNN chatbot on Facebook Messenger. I don't know, some of you might have tested it. Who has tested the CNN chatbot on Facebook Messenger? Nobody? Nearly nobody? Okay, and who did it? So nobody obviously liked it. Because it is a shitty experience. To be honest, it really also only does send you links. And okay, they have something they call, I think, a summary. If you push the Get a Summary button, you get like 3 paragraphs of text inside the messaging app, and you can have like a short summary of an article, but still they only push content to you. And if we think about what messaging apps are all about, it's not about pushing content, it's about talking to people. And the same is true for the Wall Street Journal bot on the right, which enables you to follow certain topics around the stock exchange. So if you want to know all about what's Apple doing at the Wall Street, you can just follow Apple, and it will also send you an automatic notification on that. So this is not as simple as the Bild transfer ticker, but it is not that sophisticated. The next thing maybe some of you might know is this app. It's from Quartz. Hands up who knows this app? Okay, so some people know it. And maybe I should explain. It's a messaging app or a separate standalone app. You can download it on iOS, on the App Store. And what it does is it feels like a text adventure. Some of you might remember the text adventures of the 80s or early 90s, where you can choose your own route through an adventure of protagonist. And this is exactly what Quartz is doing here. They give you 2 little buttons at the bottom, and you tap on one, and depending on what button you tap, the story continues. And what's interesting here is this is not happening by some kind of artificial intelligence, but there is an editorial team in the back end who has a content management system entering information into the content management system, which then is pushed to the user. So this is way more sophisticated, in my opinion, than what we see on Facebook Messenger with the CNN bot, for example. There's a US startup called Purple, which does a similar thing on SMS. You can just enter your telephone number, and it will automatically send out little text notifications to you. And if you enter a keyword, then the conversation continues. And if you don't enter the keyword and reply to them, the conversation stops. So it's not annoying to you. They lately jumped on the train for Facebook Messenger bots and have their own beta bot in development. So you can see these small buttons down here. You just tap on them, and then the conversation continues. Another example for storytelling inside messaging apps is this one from the BBC. It had the hashtag Mexico Kidnap, and it was basically a storytelling experience which told the story of a kidnapping in Mexico from several different perspectives in real time. So you could follow the account on Viber, which is also a chat app, as some of you might know, and they set up several accounts of the victim, of the police, a neutral narrator, and of the family of the victim. them, and then in real time you could follow the story developing. And they added some videos, they added some graphics there, and so for a week or for at least for a few days, you could follow real-time updates on that story. And it was kind of an immersive storytelling approach, which really made you feel intimate with the story. So this is something that I find really interesting because it is a completely newly designed storytelling format, especially for a messaging app. And it is not only about sending out links to people. And when we talk about storytelling and messaging, we should also talk about this thing, which is by the Huffington Post, also on Viber. And what they created is basically a public chat room. So they have 2 or 3 reporters who are covering the election in the US. And these reporters are posting constant updates inside Viber. And they also created like a sticker set for that, because stickers, I don't know if you've heard of it, but they are big in messaging apps. And so they created this unique sticker set for the channel. And they update the community, and the community can react by pushing the heart button to say, OK, we like that or we disliked it. And it's an interesting approach which is taken a step further by this app, which is called TalkShow. And what TalkShow does is it creates chat rooms for topics where everyone listening in can participate. So if you, for example, create a topic, a chat room about the Rio Olympics, as the Washington Post did here, you as a reporter can enter information, but, and this is what I find particularly interesting, is you as a user can react too. So you can ask questions and the reporters can respond. And this is really an experience that resembles the old chat room experience and resembles some kind of an FAQ approach, but it feels totally natural to this whole messaging ecosphere. And one step further, this is an app called Hooks. And what Hooks does, you can create notifications, custom notifications. So for example, I want to receive a push alert whenever there's a new episode of Mr. Robot, which is a television show airing. And whenever I get a push notification, I can just swipe right on my phone, and then I automatically enter a chat room where other people are who are already talking about the same topic as I am. So, for example, in the middle, you can see whenever there's an alert, which I created for myself, whenever there's a new movie on IMDb, which has a really good rating, I get a push notification, and then I automatically land inside the chat room, and I can chat with other users about what's happening there. And I think this is also something that we might see in the future in journalism, because imagine if there's a breaking news situation and you get a push, and you open the push notification and you enter a chat room, and there are some reporters there who are telling you what is happening there, but you are also able to give something back to the reporters, to give pictures or to send them a video. And I think this is pretty interesting because it taps into the world of user-generated content. And a news outlet who gets that is BuzzFeed. They created the BuzzBot for the national conventions of the Democrats and Republicans, and it was a bot that only could send out links on Facebook Messenger, but they really thought hard about it, and they came up with a solution to get user-generated content. So they ask you when you launch the Messenger bot, okay, are you at the conference, yes or no? And depending on your answer, you got other messages. So if you've been at if you visited one of the conferences, they asked you to send them material, photos, pictures, stories you heard about. If you haven't been there, they sent you links to their reports on the convention. So they really tried an innovative approach here, which I find very interesting. But as you might have noticed, all of these experiments have some severe problems. And I'm trying to tell you some of them because so you can avoid them. The first thing is chatbots are really hard to discover. If you're not a chatbot nerd as I am, it is really hard to keep up to date because there's no list or no really updated good search engine for all the bots around there. There are some startups who try to specialize in that, but we are not there yet. So it's pretty hard to discover a new good bot. This one is something I always say, the so-called artificial intelligence is stupid. It is stupid when it comes to journalism. It might be enough for ordering a pizza, or it might be enough for booking a flight. But in my opinion, when it comes to journalism, an artificial intelligence is not able to do what a reporter is doing, at least for the moment. So imagine if there's a bombing going on somewhere and the number of the victims is rising minute by minute. How in all 7 worlds are you going to tell an algorithm what's happening there? I don't see that. So a lot of these so-called artificial intelligences are not made for journalistic approaches. This one was also already mentioned. If you really want to be active inside a messaging app and you want to not automate all the stuff but react to the users on a one-on-one basis, you really have to put a lot of effort in it. I mean, people, real people. And this is something most media companies simply can't afford or won't afford in near time. And what makes things even worse is there's such a huge landscape of messaging apps out there. Those are the 10 biggest, and 8 of them already offer bot platforms or APIs to work on bots. And WhatsApp and Snapchat are both who haven't tapped into that territory yet, but WhatsApp already announced to do it in the future. Another common mistake is you build a bot which has no advantage in comparison to a standard journalistic approach. This is an example from an article from Dan Grover, who worked at WeChat and lately moved on to Facebook to work there. And he compared how many taps on your smartphone it took to order a pizza. And you can see it took 73 taps if you enter everything by text, and on WeChat it only took you 10 to 16 taps to order it, because there are buttons, and buttons are your friends on messaging apps. Please remember that. And this is a sentence he created, and which is very true if you really think about it. No bots won't replace apps. Better apps will come out with better interfaces, and these apps will replace the apps as we know them today. And to give you some food for thought, and also I'm running out of time, I'm giving you some key sentences which I think are important for the future of conversational journalism. So you can write them down and think about them later, or you can just ignore me, I don't know. And the first thing is, we already reached peak comments. I think we are not going to see more and more comments on public social media sites, because people are moving to closed groups, to Facebook groups, to Slack communities, to WhatsApp groups. And we as a media have real difficulties to enter these groups. And this is a problem for us. And this sentence, journalism in messengers right now is mostly ridiculous, is especially true if we think about what the future might look like. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we will look back to today, and if we see the CNN chatbot, we will ask ourselves, okay, oh my God, what did we do there? Because it's ridiculous. And the thing is, we really have to think about how to reinvent storytelling for these messaging apps. It's not done by simply sending out links. It's not done by simply pushing content to people. This is not what is going to work. If you remember the early days of Twitter, when brands entered, they started to do exactly that, until they realized, okay, no, Twitter is about communication. It's about following each other, and it's about staying in contact with each other. So this leads to my next thesis, which is there will be a BuzzFeed for conversational journalism. There's room there for an innovative company who really gets messaging. There really is a future for someone who's able to invent new formats for messaging. And maybe BuzzFeed will do this on its own. I don't know. There are clever guys there. And but I would put my 50 cents on another company and not BuzzFeed. And what this means is that the next big job in journalism is the copywriter, because you only have limited space. You only can send short updates to the users, no long text, as you've seen. And that means whatever you send to a user must really transport your value, your brand value. It must really transport what you're standing for. It must really make you different from other companies being in the same area. So this copywriting thing is something that is really important, because the tone matters. And another thing which I guess is really important is we need an open standard for messaging apps, because right now the ecosystem is so diverse and so hard to cope with if you're developing bots or if you're developing anything on messaging apps. It's really hard, but I don't see that happening because the companies have their own interests. And then remember this thing: humor is the key to success in messaging apps. It is really important not to be stiff there because people are not used to get standardized messages in their messaging apps. And the one question that is the most important one for me is how will people react to us as brands or as media companies entering this private space? I think they will get used to it, but who knows? So as you see, there's a lot to talk about, and I think we better get started. Thank you.